In terms of old projects, this year has been the year for them. This year alone, 2 old Citadels that the community thought were dead came out of nowhere and are finally being put in their final resting places, and a 3rd one may join them. On the 7th, Gamma posted this teaser with the caption, "I wonder if the Citadel will actually release after all of these years." There's only one unreleased Citadel project left in JTO, that being Citadel of Heights and Depths, known mainly by its acronym, CoHaD. So today, I'm going to sift through the Citadel's 2-year-long development process and share with you the history of what is known about it publicly, and even share my opinions about the Citadel itself along the way. And at the very end, I will even try and go ahead and even give you my predictive release date for it. Let's go ahead and begin. Let's take a look at what we actually know about the Citadel. And I hope you really like teasers, because there are so many of them. It's ridiculous. The reason why I personally find CoHaD such an interesting Citadel is because we know so much about it, but not enough where we know everything. It's the perfect balance of information in my opinion. So I hope you're ready to go ahead and take a very deep dive into this thing. Let's go ahead and look through the very first teasers of CoHaD first. I am going to be mainly quick firing through these because a lot of these pictures don't really have much to talk about. The first bit of information that is relevant to talk about is how this Citadel started out, because originally this was not a Citadel, but was originally just supposed to be a normal 10-floor tower. The story starts on December 5th, 2019, with the funny first message from Juke saying CoHaD is a fetus. However, it seems that work on CoHaD itself did not start until the very next day, where we would see the first picture of the tower itself. The picture was the tower frame with a very handsome looking man on the sides. The first actual teaser of the tower itself came at the end of 2019. Juke showed off a picture of the first floor. While this floor looks really bare, this picture had showed off some very interesting things. Note how this tower is known as Heights and Depths. If you look near the spawn point, you can actually see a ramp leading down to the bottom of the tower at the start. We also see a green block with an arrow pointing down as well. But the main thing Juke wanted to show us in this picture was the box, with Juke even explicitly talking about that box. It was clear that Juke was trying to show off some mechanic for the tower, but nobody really knew what was up yet. Juke would also talk about CoHaD possibly turning into a Citadel already. During this tower's infancy, progress on it was insanely quick, and floor 1 was finished the exact day we got to see a picture of the box. The next day, Juke did even more work on CoHaD. We even got to see a picture of floor 2, which interestingly was titled Floor 2 of CoHaD Part 2. It seemed before we could even blink that floor 2 was done, because later the same day, Juke announced its completion. Going into the new year, floor 3 got finished rather quickly as well. Within 2 weeks in the new year, floor 3 was completed. CoHaD's progress was going very quickly, and it was seemingly promising that this could be a Juke project that could get finished. With considering her track record with cows at this point, it definitely was a sense in the right direction. However, immediately after floor 3 was finished, progress on CoHaD just stopped. In fact, the project was stuck in limbo for quite a while until April, when Juke finally mustered up some ideas to finish the 4th floor. We got no pictures, but as a bonus, Juke actually showed us the structuring for floor 5, adding that there would not be any of the wacky basement stuff. Around this time, this is when serious talks about making CoHaD to be turned into a Citadel would begin. Juke stated that if CoHaD were to be upgraded to become CoHaD, that it may have only around 15 floors. Juke even started mentioning CoHaD interchangeably with the CoHaD acronym. While Juke was thinking about this decision, Juke worked on floor 5, and unlike floor 4, we at least got to see something. It looks like the structuring she used is for where the gameplay would sit. Very interesting idea if you ask me. But however, it didn't take her long to go ahead and make a decision. Just under a week later, on April 15th, 2020, it was official. Juke decided to go ahead and upgrade CoHaD into CoHaD. Personally, I found this decision rather strange, considering at this point Juke also had Tower of Oblivion on her tail, and Citadel Wacky Strategy as well, And at this point, Cows was a year in the making, and Oblivion at this point as well was a few months old. The decide to make this a Citadel and give her even more work was a rather confusing thing to do in my opinion. If I were Juke in this situation, I wouldn't have made CoHaD into CoHaD, but hey, I won't complain. More content for us. Upon CoHaD's announcement, however, there was a really interesting bit of information that she shared. Apparently, the floor count was very tricky to explain. Now this may seem very confusing, but get this. Juke talked about how the basement area of CoHaD may be up to 750 by 1000 by 750 in size. For reference, an average floor is 100 by 100 by 100, and the size of a full tower is 100 by 1000 by 100. Which would mean that an area the size of multiple towers was beneath the surface of the Citadel. The floor count in CoHaD has changed multiple times in the Citadel's life, simply because of the changes on how the basement floors would be counted. More interestingly though, Juke confirmed that she would no longer be working on the Citadel alone, with the addition of Gameter to the team, which is now the game's co-owner. However, we didn't get much information in terms of his involvement on the project. Another floor gets finished as well, one of the purple ones. You can actually see the classic style of CoHaD here starting to take shape. But interestingly enough, Juke talks about a CoHaD that got finished, but she doesn't know if she counts it as a floor or not. Considering her talks about the basement earlier, I am pretty sure that's what Juke is on about here. However, with tons of progress in these 2 weeks in April, CoHaD's development would hit a wall again, this time until June, which is Juke's favorite month of the year. Get it? Because if you replace the K in Juke with an N, it's June. Between progress though, she talked a little bit about the Citadel soundtrack. CoHaD apparently uses Luigi Mansion 3 and MapleStory music, for those of you wiki freaks out there. However, on June 6th, another floor was announced to be completed. In this announcement, Juke talked about the Citadel potentially going into Ring 3, which did make sense as Ring 3 and 4 were the only areas that didn't have a Citadel in them yet. She also talked about how the Citadel wasn't actually as modern as some people thought as well, which is pretty much just showing how CoHaD is going to have the same style she uses in Toys and Towel, which there are some modern mechanics, but most of the gameplay is classic. Now, here's where things start to get really strange. Juke was a little bit generous on this day, because she decided to actually make a video teaser on CoHaD. Yes, you heard me right. Video teaser. Have a look. What you just saw was floors 4 to 6 in this video clip, but let's not forget the main attraction here, which is the statue. This some sort of weird mini-boss fight thing? Apparently this is something that comes from one of Juke's older games, Perpetual Adventure. One thing I should note with these super old teasers is that this stuff could be outdated, but I really hope this is something that is in CoHaD. It is something very different, and if you don't know it's coming, could scare the hell out of you. But this wasn't the only video that Juke would ever show off of the Citadel. Reaching the midpoint of CoHaD, Juke talks about how there are some illusions in the Citadel itself, which I find pretty weird. She even showed off a video of them too. There's a path going to the left, and now there isn't. But probably the most important thing that this teaser shows off is a direct middle finger to Scouthex, who won't be able to do this in his no damage challenge. Sorry mate. And, oh, here's a picture of some gameplay. So far, this video has been rather boring, showing off pictures and some small teasers. However, now it's time to go ahead and spice the video up, because all the people who don't care about the Citadel are now gone. On June 13th, 2020, Juke showed off a video showing off the first 4 floors of CoHaD. Now we finally get to see some real interesting stuff now. This Citadel is definitely jam-packed full of stuff, and we finally got to see the basements in action. Remember that green box in the first picture we saw? Well, you push it down into the pit and get sent to the basement. Especially on the later floors where it's just a dark void like I showed earlier, I really feel like this is going to be used well. But that wasn't the only mechanic shown off. There's also this funny mechanic where you have to click to get off this platform. This in my eyes is insanely cool, and I can see this being used in some funny ways. Like all of a sudden the Citadel can pull an ICI and force you to dismount quickly or else you get trolled. But probably the thing that is the most interesting to me is the route of progression. One of the things that Juke has talked about in the past is how CoHaD is actually supposed to be confusing to navigate. There are quite a few parts that are in the first few floors alone I can see being very funny. In floor 2, you have to go on another one of those clicking platforms, but this section is just a circle, and after you get to a pushing platform, it sends you back to where you started. If you backtrack a bit to where you came from, a basement section appears. However, it was floor 3 that really showed just how far Juke was pushing the basement. We can actually see a later part of the basement in this video, and honestly, I really like where Juke is going with this basement idea. The whole black void and nothingness I feel like is going to add a super cool atmosphere, and I think it's awesome how she teases this section early, so you know what you're getting into later on. Really sick idea. The last notable thing to point out in terms of how the basement mechanic is used is when you complete floor 3 basement. You fly up through the ceiling and get access to floor 4. Upon completing floor 4 though, you're supposed to go down back into the floor 3 basement and then jump up. This is where the video ends. Looking back at the statue video, we can see what the rest of floor 4 looks like. This may not look too much, but remember, these are only the first 4 floors of the Citadel, and conveniently, Juke decided not to show off the rest of floor 4, which I find really interesting. But now let's talk about Citadel of Wacky Nostalgia, also known as CoHaD. Wait, what? When I first played CoHaD for the first time, I noticed something rather interesting in the Overcoming Hatred floor. There was this platform that would turn green, then if you hit the kill brick, it would send you back to that block? Well, I thought this was from CoHaD, and even Adamir did as well. I couldn't see Juke making a CCO for CoHaD and only using it once. Plus, why is there blue particles of all colors for the kill bricks? Blue would make sense to me in CoHaD because of the basements, so I was pretty confident. Well, I actually probably found the single most unknown teaser that CoHaD has, and sure enough, Juke made this mechanic for CoHaD. What I find funny is that this is floor 9, and if you fall on this part and don't hit the kill brick, you get sent back to floor 3. I don't think that you can do that anymore though, but I'll explain later. However, this mechanic conveniently gets me to bridge about floor 9. The 9th floor of CoHaD is fully in the basement. And remember this message from Juke on the sheer scale on how big the basement could get? Well, have a look for yourself. Look at how massive it is! It's ridiculous! CoHaD actually has the capability for being the longest tower in JTO, and as Juke said, CoHaD was probably over an hour long. Jesus Christ! In fact, Juke said that floor 9 alone was like 10 or 15 minutes long. What the hell? It will definitely be interesting to see if sections on floor 9 got scrapped or not, because hell, that is crazy. In other news, Juke also decided to go ahead and add an additional 5 surface floors to CoHaD, giving her even more work to do. But before we knew it, floor 9 was finished up, and 3 teasers for floor 10 were shown. One of a code door, which, interestingly enough, is going to be RNG, so speedrunners are not going to have a fun time with this, whatever the hell this is, and a picture of the last part of floor 10, which clearly is in the basement or something because you can see the pit going up. Along with these pictures was a confirmation of the Citadel's placement, Ring 3. CoHaD would officially have its resting place there. Now at this point, Juke talks about adding something very different to CoHaD, potentially adding a permanent save point in it around halfway up. Personally, I really do not like the idea of a permanent save point in CoHaD, because part of the challenge in JTO is to try and do something in a single sitting. However, we don't know how far this went, and I guess we'll have to see on release. But next up was floor 11. Juke shows off this door with 6 keys with display cases that say display only. I wonder if this is going to be a puzzle floor where you have to find out how to get these keys, or it's just a basic go get the keys challenge. Floor 12 was finished rather quickly and we got to see a picture. Juke at first thought about not showing it because of spoilers, which I find really interesting, but she decided to do it anyway. Doesn't seem like there's anything crazy in this picture. That very day, Juke would talk about her difficulty trying to find the right builder for CoHaD to work along with herself, Seal, and Gamma. Oh yeah, that's one thing I never mentioned. Floor 9 was partially made by Seal. Apparently, Seal definitely left his mark, because originally it had death pits that were insta-kill, so that's funny. However, these have since been removed. Jukeries even asked Urchin to possibly work on the Citadel. However, it seems that Urchin wasn't interested. She even asked Azza if they were interested. But soon enough, Jukeries would find her pal. On the 29th, Juke would pick Punky Joe. But we will talk more about Punky's involvement in the Citadel in a bit. One thing that I found when doing research for this video is that CoHaD is apparently going to have multiple mazes to navigate in. Apparently in the second half of floor 4, which Juke did not show in her video, there is a maze. I wonder if this is why she ended the video off early. Plus, wait a minute. Am I reading this correctly? 3 mazes on 9? Glad I was sitting down when I saw that one. One is apparently massive, one is pretty big, and then there's a mini-sized one. Holy hell! How many mazes does a Citadel need? But at this point, things start to get a little bit weird when it comes to the history of CoHaD itself. That floor 12 teaser, it seems that the community missed a huge detail, and Jukeries pointed it out herself. There's a weird orb on the top left of the image. I have no idea what the hell this thing is, but clearly it has some importance if Juke decided to point it out at a later date. But that wasn't the weirdest thing that happened. On July 31st, Jukeries put down CoHaD's portal in Ring 3 with the following message. In preparation for CoHaD's eventual release in around a month or so, a portal has been added to Ring 3. The same day, Juke showed off CoHaD's frame inside of Ring 3, which you can clearly see the top 6 surface floors barely having anything in it. As we all know, it's a year later and the Citadel is not here, so what happened? Well, firstly, floor 9 was officially split into 2 separate floors, and a surface floor was removed. We also got this picture of the updated CoHaD frame. To this day, this is the most updated picture of CoHaD's frame to the public, even though this picture is over a year old now. August 26, 2020, Juke did an update on her unfinished projects, where she announced that she was burnt out on CoHaD and was leaving it for others to go ahead and take a stab at it, and announced that the release date was a bad idea, saying it was a foolish thing to do. And well, in terms of Jukeries' involvement with CoHaD, that was pretty much it. It seems that Juke just left the project after, doing next to nothing and leaving it for Gamma and Punky to finish the Citadel up, as Seal had been long gone from the JTO community at this point. So basically what happened? Well, Punky isn't a developer, and the exact magnitude of Gamma's involvement isn't known, so information on CoHaD pretty much was dead, and for much of 2021 we got nothing new. Pretty much 95% of the CoHaD teasers are from 2020, which means tons of these pictures could have scrapped parts or be old. which is a really massive possibility. When Juke left the project, she talked about potentially scrapping some ideas she had in CoHaD and use them in Oblivion instead. She even mentioned once how CoHaD had 20 custom client objects in it at one point, which is insane. However, the first time we really got to hear anything of CoHaD in 2021 was a message from Gamma. In May, Gamma would officially announce CoHaD's fate. He announced that CoHaD was receiving a nerf from around high intense down to challenging or intense, which is where it was originally supposed to be. So why is this important? Well, I think the remarks about Floor 9 with the mazes are no more, and I think this is what got scrapped. This means that the 10 to 15 minute claim on Floor 9's gameplay could no longer be the case. Plus, considering the Citadel's massive length, I think we could see permanent safety nets where it's impossible to fall down to certain parts of the Citadel as part of the nerfs. For example, remember the video that showed off the new kill bricks? Well, if you screw that section up, you'd fall all the way down to 3. I'm willing to bet you that this isn't the case anymore. But this year, there's only been a couple different teasers of the Citadel itself. After this announcement in May, it wouldn't be until October when we would hear information about the Citadel again. There was a new builder in town. It was Urchin, who was notable for his involvement in cows, was now stepping into CoHaD now. May have taken him a year or so before he accepted his invite, but now he was here. With this announcement, we got a teaser of what seems to be a gif of Aubrey from Omori. Using the color of the room, we can find that the picture was taken on the third to last floor of the Citadel. So progress has definitely been slow this year, until something crazy happened. On November 21st, just a couple weeks ago, Punky announced that there was a deadline on CoHaD. We would later find out that it was initiated by Gamma. Personally, I don't know how to feel about this. It's unknown exactly where in development the team was when this deadline was made. However, considering that this was said around a week after Gamma got co-owner, I would assume it was between that time. I am very worried that because of the pressure of the deadline, that the final 2 floors of the Citadel could have been rushed. If that's where they were, because Urchin did show us that image on the third to last floor, then that's not a very good sign. So personally, I won't know how I feel about this until I play the Citadel. Because if it feels like shorter in length and not much to it, then you know my verdict. Now here is where things get really hard. From what we know, it seems that Punky is a huge driving figure for CoHaD. She does a lot of work, and most of the time when CoHaD is brought up, it's Punky who is typically talking, or is the one who is talked about. However, you have to be very careful about what Punky talks about in CoHaD, because her information isn't really reliable. Remember when I talked about CoHaD being nerfed? Well, I talked about in a private server how I thought the Citadel itself was done, because I didn't think they would be stupid enough to build the Citadel and nerf it at the same time. Well, she went in my DMs and purposely was trying to cause tons of confusion and chaos. Plus, this message talking about the deadline was said to be for the end of November. However, as we know, this wasn't true. So basically, when it comes to CoHaD information from Punky, you always have to be a little bit careful. However, she has shown a couple things. Especially a couple days ago. Nothing really major, mainly some minor teasers. The most notable was this button with the number 13 on it. Oh boy, what a major teaser. However, what is the real deadline for CoHaD, and where is the Citadel now? Well, I did a tier list stream where Punky was present. There, she made a bet. She stated if she didn't finish CoHaD by December 10th, that she would have to rebeat Tower of Ultimately Terrifying. However, I decided to let her off the hook, because on the day of the deadline there was a server outage, so I gave her an extra day. It was definitely clear that they've been working on it hard the past month or so to try and get CoHaD done. I have looked at the CoHaD place every once in a while, and pretty often there was an update within 24 hours. Most of the time it was actually within 10. We've even gotten some more information about the Citadel. Probably the most important was a de facto final floor count of 17. Because of CoHaD's route of progression, it's really hard to define what a floor is, when the Citadel literally sends you more places than a traveling job. So this is where things get really hard. all of those teasers from 2020 that had Juke talk about floor numberings could be completely wrong. On top of all of that, a lot of those images have the possibility of not being up to date at all. Floor 9, for all the hell we know, could be considered one floor again. The floor count was 21, then 20, and now it's 17. It's not that they've removed floors, it's that they changed what is a floor. It's pretty funny with as much as we know about CoHaD, we don't even know the basic thing of what the hell is the floor progression in this thing. So I guess we'll have to go ahead and play the Citadel ourselves on release and figure out what the floor numbering scheme is. Here are my predictions for the floor ordering. I am going to guess that the maze that Juke was on about on 4 is now a floor. The section where we had the peephole from floor 3 and the scout desk's middle finger is now considered a floor. And floor 9, I am predicting to have the so-called largest maze. I'm going to predict that that maze consisted of an entire floor, and due to length, was scrapped, meaning that stays the same. Stuff that I know for sure is in green, and stuff that is a prediction is in yellow. The last teaser we got for CoHaD was on the 7th, with this picture of a portal with some numbers. The teaser we first started off the video with. Well, I can tell you what this is. First of all, the numbers on the portal actually correlate to the letter in the alphabet. So for example, 5 would be E because it's the 5th letter of the alphabet. This spells T-O-C. CoHaD is going to have tower crossings in it, which marks the first tower to ever include one since the release of Tower of Deep Darkness in July 2019. It's been a long time. It's been confirmed that there is a Tower of Confusion tower crossing in CoHaD. So I'm willing to bet you somewhere in CoHaD, there is a room with around 4 or 5 towers that you will need to cross to. Pretty cool, huh? I am excited to see the tower crossing come back, as the one in Tower of Deep Darkness is one of my favorite sections in a tower in Johto. I cannot wait to see the twist that comes out of this. However, let's go ahead and acknowledge the elephant in the room. Logan, the video is coming out on the 12th. So did Punky complete the Citadel in time? Yes. Yes, she did. After 2 years and 5 days, CoHaD is finally complete. So this means that the Citadel will be put into the game and ready for bug testing, right? If you thought the teasers and floor progression were hard to understand, man, I don't think you're ready for this. First, let's go ahead and talk about something that needs to be done before any bug testing happens. Inserting the Citadel into the game. Now, Tower of Phone Snapping and Tower of Big Hole, which were the last towers that were added in later, did not get placed into the game, then tested like normal. For those of you who do not know, when towers are added into rings after the fact, they place a tower in-game, and couriers and above are allowed to go in and test it out before it's open to the public. You can still check the tower out with VM, but you won't be able to see the client objects, but you can still take a basic tour around the place. Tower of Phone Snapping and Tower of Big Hole were the last towers that were added in after the fact, and they didn't get this treatment. While it's not for sure, I think the reason why is because these towers barely had anything that could break them. Kyle's was a super lengthy Citadel, so they wanted to check for sure. Considering that CoHaD is not only insanely long, it has tons of custom mechanics. I'm willing to bet you for sure that CoHaD is going to have to be placed in-game and have in-game testing. However, as I will mention later, this may not be the case, and the Citadel may not be inserted before release. But this simple action of transferring it into the game is something that isn't that easy. In order to understand why, let's take a look at another Citadel that took the exact journey that CoHaD is soon going to face. Citadel of Wacky Strategy. Cows was placed inside of Ring 2 on April 26. However, I was starting to hear from some people in February or March that Cows was finished. So why was the Citadel sitting for a month or two before it was placed in game? Well, those with some astute Johto knowledge may have noticed something. Because 4 days prior to its placement on April 22nd, Ring 9 was released. This isn't a coincidence. In fact, this makes sense. Why would they have placed Cows in March when it was finished when they were dealing with Ring 9? Well, it's actually rather simple. They would have rather used their time and resources with Ring 9 instead, and that's exactly what happened. After Ring 9 had its initial patches all done, CoHaD was finally placed. So why does this matter with CoHaD? Well, because of the Christmas event. Just like CoHaD has another bug testing project that can set its hopes and dreams of being tested quickly to basically be redundant. Christmas event 2021, I am just going to share my predictions straight up, and by the way, none of this information is confirmed, I am just predicting at this point. Vendetta a couple days ago shared a teaser of the Christmas event spawn point. This is a really big teaser. They don't normally do big showing like this unless they're close to release. Now unfortunately, this could now be delayed. As 99% of you know, corner clipping was recently patched. So because of this, tons of resources were needed to try and get a fix in, and do something with Toga. They put a fix with Toga, however it made the tower much easier, so they moved it down to intense. So now there isn't an insane tower and they're looking for a new one. This means that the corner clip problem could have caused potential delays in Christmas, with the possible priority in testing now shifted towards potentially Tower of Icy Blizzards, which is said to be the replacement for Toga. This could be a massive slowdown for CoHaD, which means this is time that CoHaD could simply just sit in limbo. I am unsure though of how to think about this for a couple reasons. The scope of the event is unknown, but this isn't an area with 10 towers that needs to be tested. Just a couple steeples, a tower at the least is confirmed, and maybe a Citadel if we're lucky. So therefore, they wouldn't need as many resources. However, Icy Blizzards, at least seems to be the replacement for Toga, has some bugs in it that are present in its place, and it's unknown how hard these will be to fix. So I am not sure what to feel about this. However, prior to the corner clip problem and Icy Blizzards, Gamma has been very adamant about CoHaD itself. In fact, Punky even told me a story of how Gamma threatened to take her Aura developer access away if she didn't come in to work on CoHaD. I can't see someone with that huge determination to get the Citadel done quickly, then allowed to sit it for a month. However, things could easily change. There is a slight possibility that the Christmas event could be out by when this video airs, which is great news for CoHaD, but it's unknown where the priority for the new Insane in Ring 5 sits. I am going to predict that it's likely going to be seen as more important than CoHaD, which is going to slow it down. However, here's a kicker for you. There might be a chance that CoHaD may just be a shadow release, which means it just goes ahead, gets placed and released at the same time out of nowhere. How so? Well, back to Ring 5 and TOIB. Where Toga's location is a snowman. The difficulty chart even has question marks indicating it's a secret. I think it's a huge possibility that CoHaD may not even be placed in the game at all. I wonder if they found out a new way to bug test. If this is the case, and the new Insane is shadow dropped, which makes knowing the actual progress of it so much harder. Plus, this creates problems, because if the public doesn't know that CoHaD is in testing, the staff and dev team can make excuses way easier to keep pushing it back without any of us knowing. So now let's go ahead and talk about bug testing itself for CoHaD. You would think that if they take a couple months to bug test an area with 15 towers or so, that they'd be able to bug test one in a short period of time, right? You would be very wrong. Let's take a look at CoHaD's brother again, cows. For the first couple days, there was a ton of determination to bug test cows. However, on day 4, it was insanely rare to see anyone in cows at all that was bug testing it. To make matters even worse, for those of you who have played or seen cows before, you would know it's not that complex of a Citadel at all, but it was a bug testing nightmare. I watched a bug test happen from floor 10 onward, multiple times per floor. They had to use either no-clip or report a bug to Urchin in chat, who was sitting there hearing the bugs and fixing them. So if cows, which is not that terrible of a Citadel when it comes to mechanics, causes problems, CoHaD is a Citadel with lots of custom mechanics, which scares the hell out of me. Cows did not come out until May 21st. It took just shy of a month to bug test it, And there was a time that likely no one even came into cows for like a week or two, because no one felt like touching it. It wasn't until I did a community post where I said if cows comes out before June, I would change my display name to Logan Paul for 2 weeks. That urchin came in and finished it out. Oh, and by the way, cows isn't the only Citadel this year that has been added in after the fact. There's also Citadel of Icy Adventures in Arcane area. This thing has been sitting since June, and it still isn't out. Could CoHaD also share the fate of sitting 6 months with little to no bug testing activity at all? Personally, I am going to predict that we will see tons of curators going into CoHaD to test it, and by around day 4, everyone's just going to be gone. So it helps beg the question, who would be willing to dare to bug test something that could be a massive headache and nightmare? Simple. Well, Urchin, right? He is a builder for CoHaD as he showed, and he worked hard on cows' bug testing, so surely he'd be able to get the job done, right? Unfortunately, I have some sad news that some of you may not know. A couple weeks ago, Urchin resigned as a developer, so unfortunately, I have my doubts that he's even going to want to bug test CoHaD in the first place. And sadly, I am actually willing to guess that he didn't do much for the Citadel. So a massive driving force and someone who could have gotten CoHaD out quickly is not an option anymore. However, someone who has though came out and said that they'd be up for the task is Katarina, and they're a developer, so that means they can bug test CoHaD, right? Not exactly. In fact, there's a huge possibility of Cat being denied. Recently, developer applications were held, and Cat was one of the winners. However, they are on trial and don't have all developer permissions. So is bug testing one of those things that Cat will be allowed to do? It's tough to say, but nonetheless, Cat can be easily denied to CoHaD bug testing, which is a shame, which means we can't reliably go ahead and rely on him. However, probably the single most motivated person to bug test CoHaD, who has even been very vocal about it, is... well, it's Punky herself. But Punky can also be denied. Even though Punky built the Citadel, she isn't a member of the JTO team, which means that they could easily just tell her to go screw off. Which personally I think is dumb. Considering her motivation for the project, I feel like she's a way better choice than some of the people in the JTO team who have done nothing for months. But, welcome to JTO for you. However though, if they decide to do CoHaD's testing in its place, well, Punky has access to the place, so therefore Punky would be allowed to bug test. So I guess we'll have to see which bug testing method they go for, because if they go for the method of not placing it in-game, which could be a possibility as I have shown, then I feel like that Punky is going to be allowed to pitch in here. So, it isn't looking too good, and to be honest, I really am quite scared about how this will go. Take the massive potential for bugs, and the people who want to bug test it could be easily denied access, and this is something that is sure as hell scary to see. But if you want to see my actual prediction, I think what Urchin was for cows, Gamma is going to be for CoHaD. I really feel like Gamma is going to be the important player here, and I hope that Gamma will be determined to get CoHaD out, which, as I will show in a minute, he definitely is. Plus, he's the co-owner. There's no denying this man access. So I am at least hopeful that at least bug testing could go well. But as you've seen, there is a lot that can cause concern here. So with this in mind, what do I think could happen with the bug testing, and when do I think CoHaD could be open for the public to play? Well, I know a lot of viewers here love the wiki, and if I don't say this, I am willing to bet I'm going to have a couple of them tell me about this. If you look at the wiki, they talk about how CoHaD could release in the middle of the Christmas event. I quote from the wiki, Gammator has spoken about the progress remaining, and that it could release sometime in the middle of Christmas event 2021, which would be awkward since said event would still be ongoing. It's because of stuff like this that I really do not like the wiki, because they love to take comments like this completely out of context. I know they said could, but they did not do a good job of really making that too clear. If you actually take a look at the message they were referencing, he says that it's going to feel awkward that CoHaD will release any Snowy Ring 3. This basically means absolutely nothing. Gamma placed the snow in the game a couple weeks ago. When I last checked, there is no event going on right now, and there's snow. Who's to say in January or February, when the event is finished, that he's just gonna take the snow away when people are still getting hit with snow in real life? It just doesn't make sense. But all this does tell us is that fortunately, it seems that my feelings are right that Gamma is definitely ambitious to try and get this Citadel out the door. As I have stated, there are just so many different variables that can completely screw the Citadel up in terms of release. So I am going to talk about what I think is going to happen. It is very possible that CoHaD could be inserted into the game right now, and that this video is already outdated. However, personally, I do not think it matters if CoHaD is inserted now or after Christmas, because I doubt anyone in the JTO team is going to do much between Christmas and New Year's if they don't have something to keep them up. So I think it doesn't matter. Plus, I don't think they're even putting in CoHaD this week at all. I think they're going to spend some time doing some bug testing in the place to make sure everything is in shape, do some final touches, and then finally be ready to put the Citadel into the game. I expect this to take around a week or so anyway, which would mean Christmas would definitely be done, and if TOIB is the replacement and has a high priority to either release with Christmas or a little after, then CoHaD isn't going to be affected that much at all. I am feeling pretty confident that Punky will get bug testing access if it's placed into the game or not prior to release for testing, but not Katarina. I think Gamma is going to want to have somebody like Punky who is very motivated and knows the Citadel very well to help out in bug testing, and I think Gamma knows very well that he may not get too much help from the staff team. He has definitely seen what happened with Cows and Koya. I just hope that after all of this corner clipping nonsense he's dealt with the past couple days, that he still has some motivation for CoHaD now. I expect that CoHaD testing is going to be difficult, however, unlike Cows, I think there is at least going to be some motivation this time, at least definitely way more than there was. So, I predict that CoHaD is going to be released between the 16th and 23rd of January, but if I had to pick a day, I would guess Friday, January 21st. As cool as it would be to finish out this year with all 3 of the game's old unfinished Citadel projects in their resting spots, I don't think that's exactly realistic. Sure, there is a possibility that it could be released before the new year, or even with Christmas if they insert it into the game now and bug testing goes well, but to be honest, I feel like that they will put it in between Christmas and New Year's, and it would take around 2 or 3 weekends to make sure there was enough time and that stuff gets fixed right before they feel comfortable to go ahead and get CoHaD out the door. It is important to note that if CoHaD does get put into the game, hopefully by the end of the year, to please respect the curators and be kind to them. If you see them test, feel free to spectate quietly, but don't go into the message and ask questions or bother them. Don't tell everyone of their existence. And another thing, I wouldn't be surprised if the bulk of the Juke's teasers from 2020 are simply outdated, with Seal's Mark making stuff way harder. The length being cut down a bit and whatnot, this is just an idea of what the finished product for CoHaD could look like in the end. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lengthy video taking a look at the Citadel's history. I hope you may have learned something new, and hopefully after a 2-year-long story, hopefully soon the story of CoHaD can come to an end. Shout out to Juke's for allowing me to use her footage. Link to her video on 1 to 4 of CoHaD if you're interested is in the description. Shout out to all my members who for $2 a month or more get special perks among getting their name at the end of my videos. My name is Logan ISL. I hope you all enjoyed the rest of your day, and I hope to see you all later. See you everyone. Bye bye.